Hi again, everyone. I'm olliemathews. This is Refuge from Narcissism, and this refugee video is sponsored by contribution from Blue Columbine, and this is another follow-up. Hey, Ollie, this is the second part to my story. The first part you did for me was named "The Narcissistic Baby Boomer Takes the Lord Part of Landlord Very Seriously." Sorry this one is so long, I just wanted to be sure to be thorough. It was a very dark time for me, and there was a lot that went on. I tried to condense it the best I could. And for those who don't remember, she also sent in the meme the narcissist, where her parents basically kicking her out while driving around on their boat, at their cabin, on their motorcycle, in their camper, with fucking nut huggers on, with the bicycle shorts. We remember. So where I left off was I had been looking for a place to rent. I actually had an acquaintance tell me about a person who had been looking for a tenant. It was right in my neighborhood. It was an elderly man who needed some help and someone to be there. I guess he was having a hard time staying active and keeping a house in order with just him living there. The yard had been unkempt because he was too old and frail to take care of it. There was a recent incident where some people broke into the house through the window in the middle of the night, and he ran into the street naked. I guess people that broke in thought it was abandoned. This incident scared him, and he wanted to make the home a more active place for safety reasons. I went to see the house and was shocked at the state of it. There was junk piled and trash just everywhere. One thing that stuck out with me was in the kitchen there was a huge jug of oil tipped over on the far counter that covered most of the floor, so you just had to walk around the edge of the room to get to the sink and back door. The oil had a film and dust on it like it had been there for weeks. And when I asked him about it, he said he just can't get himself to take care of it. Also that he could slip. It was a big house, an older one with a lot of character, and there was a foyer that was painted a really blue ombre. The dining room to the left was being used as the living room. The dining room to the left was being used as the living room, and to the right, a huge front room that would have been the living room. That would be the living room, but it was quite literally a dying room because it was just sitting unused. Stuff stacked up all over the floor and bookcases that displayed dried up dead animals and taxidermy. There was some large potted cacti in the front window of this room. They looked half dead. The dining room had a massive wall of books, as well as a large frame black and white photograph of a woman with a blank, dazed look on her face. There was a small shelf around the ceiling with a really cool train that at one time ran around the top of the room. There was also a very large photo machine. His bedroom was in front, and there was 3 rooms in the back. 2 of the rooms were all piled up with stuff, and one was empty, the one he was looking to rent. It was a big room with lots of windows and closet space. Also had a large bed with a beautiful canopy bed frame that was metal and was made to look like it was made of vines and leaves. There was an attached large Jack and Jill bathroom, though the toilet was broken. There was another bathroom in the room across the hall. This one had a working toilet, but the shower was broken. This is what happens to hoarders' houses. They just fall apart. They fall apart. Animals get in. They start dying. They start to smell. They don't clean up the garbage. It gets overwhelming. This room was full of stuff, but there was a walkway to get to the bathroom. That Jack and Jill bathroom was attached to my room on one end, and on the other was the main hallway connected to a smaller hallway going into it. There was a mural on the wall drawn in black on a white wall. There were several people in the drawing. they were simply smaller than life size. It was well made, just very odd. There were a lot of hip, young looking people, and there was this guy in there too. The old guy owned the house. He told me he had many renters, roommates that were college students, lots of them artists. This house was located in the arts district part of town that's close by a college. He said it used to be a very active, cool house, and someone who lived there drew all the people who had lived in the home. One really creepy part about this picture is there was one smaller figure a bit behind the others who had a head but no face. I asked, "Who's that?" And he said, "The artist never finished it." I went out I went out back to see the backyard. There was a two-car detached garage and a large backyard with a big fruitless mulberry trees that were growing up into phone lines while there was on the ground at least 3 feet of leaves that you couldn't even walk into the yard at all. It looked like it had been many years since any work had been done to upkeep the property. He was telling me about how he was disabled and had anxiety, and when all the renters left, he just became cathartic and had a hard time being motivated to do much, so things stagnated. I actually felt bad for him. He lived on Social Security, and it's really just enough to get by not an. I'm sorry. He said he lived on Social Security, and it's really just enough to get by, but not enough to hire someone to help him keep up with the house. He was hoping if someone would help him fix it up, it would make the house a home again and be safer for him if he fell or something happened. Someone would be there to notice and help. I asked him if he looked into home care because he should be eligible. He said he was interested in that. He did tell me, however, that anyone he rents can and won't have a rental contract, and rent had to be paid cash under the table because he did not want to show the proof of income because he didn't want anything to change for his Social Security benefits. Right, but then you don't have a lease and he can throw you out whenever he wants. That's the problem with that. I had seen ads in the past for a live-in caretaker in exchange for reduced rent and thought that wasn't completely fair. In-home care should be paid for. But many of those people that post those ads have money, or else they would have insurance, or Social Security to help them take care of the cost. In home care, in-home care is expensive, and they want it for free. The maddening thing is when you see these ads, and it's like, again, they expect you to be this perfect person who doesn't have any guests or a life outside the home. So I don't understand why someone would willingly change an old person's diaper in exchange to sleep someplace where you can't even have your own life. How many stories do you hear about, like, I had to put my career on the side to help my parents in their old age? So these people want some stranger to do it for them for free just to have a place to sleep when they are benefiting from sleeping there to begin with. This is how entitled the boomers are. In their old age, they think they can just get a live-in nanny for free because they know about this marginalized group of young people like me who are in a situation where they can't rent from a property management company and they don't have enough money to buy, so they have to rent rooms, and then you got to deal with people charging $700, $800, $900 for a single small room with all these rules on top of that. It makes your options less and less, especially if you're single, because of not having a dual income. Yet those who are couples have to deal with many places not renting the couples, so it's just hard to find a place to live in general. I have a friend who is a caretaker, and he told me the most told me most of the caretaking jobs require work as an IHSS worker. So I thought if I could live here and actually get paid for the work that I do, that will actually help someone, that would be cool. I would be getting an experience as an IHS worker at the same time. It was a win-win. But still, the issues of the state of the house, I mean, there was a lot of creepy, weird stuff there, and it just seemed like all too much for me. This actually happened before even the incident with my landlords at the apartment. I was complaining about my apartment, how my apartment didn't have heat and how expensive it was, and someone told me they knew this guy was looking for a roommate. After I checked it out, I left and thought about it. The rent was cheap and the room was actually nice, but the guy just seemed really weird and off to me. The fact that he let the house get to that state in the first place and all this stuff left behind from past tenants. And also keep in mind here that your fucking parents with the nut hugger shorts driving around the country in their fucking camper and their $60,000 motorcycles and their boat and their house won't co-sign a loan, won't help you out, have no problem with you trying to live like this. None. The fact that he let the house get to that state in the first place and all this stuff left behind from past tenants. So I never reached back out to him. I had been looking for a rental, hoping for someone better, and I just couldn't find anything. I asked my parents, here we go. I asked my parents if I could move back home, but I couldn't because they moved some lady from the church into my old room. Like I said, okay, the narcissist, the boomer would rather watch you die, would rather help a stranger, okay, and watch you die, watch you struggle. They get off on it. Now, I went to this church before and I didn't know her because she was a new member. Perfect. She's perfect for her. They don't even know her. Somebody out of the blue, new target for them. Great. Immediately, they're above you on the they're above you on the hierarchy ladder of the narcissist. Immediately, they get to be 3 rungs above you. Immediately. She was at least in her mid to late 40s and had a husband and children still in school. She went to the church to find community so she couldn't get help in leaving her husband. My mother made it sound like there was some kind of reason for her leaving. But when I would try to get details, I would only get vague answers. When I met this woman, I asked her point blank why she was leaving and trying to get a divorce. She told me that it was because, quote, he's just like whatever. Sounds like a Gen X woman. Sounds like a Gen X nar. Just whatever. If you're living in someone's house, being like quote unquote rescued or whatever you want to call it, I would think you would have a better answer of why are you leaving this guy? Why do you need my parents' house? But, well, he's just like whatever. But those answers are meant to demoralize you. Okay, those aren't just, random answers. Those answers have a fucking purpose. To let you know, okay, you're on lower rung than they are. That's all it's about. Is letting you know what your proper place is. I asked her what she meant by that, and she said, when it comes to doing things or making decisions, he's just kind of like whatever. He's not passionate about anything. He'll just go with whatever. Okay, so what you got here is, you got... So she's just bored with the marriage. She's just bored with the marriage, probably spoiled, got her way every which way, didn't respect him, and now she's going to turn herself into a victim. What I took from that was she was leaving because she was bored. Yeah, exactly, because she was bored. She was tired of married life and wanted to be single again. So now she's going to abandon her family, and my family isn't enabling her to do so. While I'm out here single, actually I had recently gone through a bad breakup myself earlier that year, living without the support, protection, or guidance of the family, and really struggling trying to figure things out. Scared about being able to find a place in time. Right. The boomer, the narcissist, is always going to give the stranger the attention they never gave you. And they're going to do it right in your face. It's their way of letting you know what your place is. It's how they do it. I told my parents about the guy with the house and the room, and they didn't even want to go see it or meet him before they jumped on board with it, especially about the possibility of getting experience of being in an in-care home worker. What father would put their daughter in that situation without even looking and making sure it was safe? It just tells you what their opinion of you is, what they feel about you in their heart, in their soul. They will give the love and attention that they should have given you to a stranger every time. And they will do it right in your face. I told them I was really concerned with the state of the house and the guy in general. And they were like, you can take care of that, though. Once you clean it up, it'll all be nice and you can help him. You can do this, you can do that, you can do this, you can do that. I had considered elderly care as something I could do in the past, and my parents always used to say, when they get old, I'm going to be the one to take care of them. Oh. Well, yeah, they need you to get training so when you got to wipe their ass. Okay? For once they get to a point where everybody's sick of their bullshit. Okay? And then what they're going to do is they're going to use their money and use their wealth, which they seem to have a considerable amount of, okay, to hoover you back, put the carrot at the end of the stick, and you won't get a dime, and you're not going to get a dime of that money. Not a dime. Because that's what boomers do. They'll give it to the strangers in the church. That's exactly what they're going to do with that money. Because they already showed you the church people are more important than you. So maybe in a way it was preparing me for my future role, or more like keeping me in my place as an indentured servant. I actually ran into that old guy at a public place in town randomly, and he asked me if I was interested in the room. I told him I was concerned it would be just too much work, and I really wanted a place that had a room for me to spread out, and I felt like his stuff was all consuming and would be hard to work around. He said he's hoping when things become active in the home, he could start to do more and just needs the motivation. And he needs to get rid of stuff, and actually all the stuff in the back room left behind from people that used to live here. It just hadn't been dealt with yet. I was like, yeah, maybe it could work, but I'm still not sure. And he offered me a lower price for the room. I thought about what was all going on, and I had to find a place quickly. He wasn't asking for any security department, and the rent was cheap. Security deposit, and the rent was cheap. Maybe I could just be there until I found a better spot. I had also been renting a storage unit since my apartment was so small, and I thought if I could turn one of those spare rooms into my office personal living room, I could get out of my storage unit and it would make my life easier to just have close access to my stuff. I countered his offer. I said, how about the same price as before, but I rented out those two back rooms. He agreed to it. He said, I just need help moving everything around. Good luck, but if this guy's a hoarder though, he's going to fight you on everything you want to clean up and get rid of. I continued to look for housing just in case I found something last minute, but I figured it was a good backup plan. It was a nice room, and once I clear out the space, I can make the back. Once I clear out the spare, I can make the back a nice private living space of my own. The house had a lot of potential, and it was sad seeing it in the state it was in. And the problem is, you don't know what's going on with the foundation, you don't know what's going on with the roof, you don't know what's in the walls, you don't know what's going on with the floors. Like, that whole thing could be collapsing under your feet, and you don't know it. Getting closer to the move out date and did not find anything else, I started to convince myself how this would be good, and I can somehow and how I can help someone, and it might turn out to be a good thing after all. I did finally get paid for two of those three side jobs and was expecting the last payment and my deposit back once I moved out. Spoiler alert, I never got that either. And it was crazy because one of the jobs was actually the same as my rent with materials plus time. That was this that was this lawyer with the Coke on his counter you said in the last video to call the law office. Here's something funny. I went into his office once a week for my job actually. He was never there when I was there, and I left a note on his desk with the amount and listed the expenses, basically like an invoice. I also went to his house where the work was done many times to collect as well. I did what I could, but I wasn't going to try to take a lawyer to court. I could charge over $200 for any single job without my business license anyway. I had done house sitting for them in the past, and even one time he lost his key out of town. He had me drive hours to bring him his spare. He paid me then, so we had a working relationship. I just didn't see it coming. I learned from my mistake, though. I wasn't taking on any more side jobs for the moment. For one, I was afraid to get burned again, but also I needed all the time I could have to get this place ready before I moved in. I went over there and any spare time I had, it was a lot of work. First, I cleaned up the oil. When I got into the fridge, I guess he wasn't able to access it for so long because the oil was there and was rotten and all the moldy food all inside. I threw out and bleached everything. I did the dishes, cleaned out the sink. It was beyond disgusting, and they honestly should have just been thrown out. One working toilet I had to clean right away as well because it was like it hadn't been done for years, even just wiped down. He didn't have any cleaning products, not a toilet scrubber or anything. It was so nasty. I can imagine what you're going to find once you get into this. It was time for me to start moving so that I could have my old place cleaned out before the first. I moved my stuff and cleaned my apartment spotless. It looked just like when I had moved in. After I left, they never gave me my deposit back. They said it was because they knew I smoked pot and I didn't scrub the walls before I left. I had so much going on, it pissed me off, but I really didn't want to see them ever again. And I just had so much to do with the move and the new place that I didn't have the time to fight them on it, so I just took the L. I worked on the yard and in the house organizing and cleaning when I wasn't working. I filled up the green waste trash bins every week and additionally got 3 trailers full of leaves out of the yard in order to clear it. My dad let me use his trailer, parked it there, and helped me take it to the dump, which was great, but he didn't once stay to help me fill it. I don't think my parents ever went inside that house or in the yard until I was moving out. I cleaned the garage because it was covered in black mold. You shouldn't have done that. If it's black mold, that's dangerous. That could kill you. There was some grow equipment stuff. There was some grow equipment stuff. I knew I threw it all out and just bleached, scrubbed, and pressure washed the walls. He was going to box up the stuff the past tenants left behind, then called him to get it. If they didn't, we just donate it, but we were going to keep it in the garage for the moment so I could clean that room out. When I came home from work, he had this tall stuff that belonged to 3 previous female roommates. It was set up in the garage, not stacked up like I thought it would be, but instead spread out like objects were put on display, that he was showing me their stuff and talking about them. He even moved the chair from inside in there so he could just sit there and remember them with their stuff. He even called it a shrine. Weird. He acted like that. He acted like he said that in a joking way, but I don't really see this as a joke at all. He had this mannequin, which he named Slutty, in the garage and put different clothes on it that belonged to his past roommates. Run. Creepy. Creep. It was supposed to be funny, like it's all a joke, but how is something a joke when you're actively doing it? I don't know. It was all so weird. He seemed to have this unhealthy obsession with the people that used to live there. He showed me pictures of them and told me stories like they had a deep friendship. He said things like, I would have left my house if he had just stayed. And I don't have a family or legacy, so I don't know who I'm going to leave this house to when I die. This is another carrot. There's another carrot. He was a really weird guy, and the more I cleaned the house, the more weird shit I found that I didn't notice at first or know the full story on. I will list some examples. I found a bunch of needles, and he said they were from his roommate, and he wanted to keep them for her memory. He seemed to be particularly obsessed with her the most, and he told me she was very sick and had died. The bed frame in my room I liked so much, he originally got for her as a gift. He said she was in bed a lot due to her sickness, and she wanted that particular frame and got it for her. Sickness with needles? I wonder what that was. He showed me several photos of her. She was an alternative punk goth chick and very young, maybe early 20s. He said she used needles for her treatment but couldn't get himself to rid them of them after she passed. He told me about the large black and white frame photograph in the front room, the one with the girl with the dazed stare. It was this photographer he was very interested in, who mainly took the pictures of people in mental hospitals. The woman being pictured is heavily drugged on tramadol. He told me that the picture was the most valuable thing in the home, and it was a real print, and it was a large picture about 5 feet tall. One time I wanted to take the potted cacti in the front dining room and give them some water and hose them off since they looked half dead and dried and very dusty. He told me not to water them, that it was an experiment of where he wanted to find out how long it would take them to die from neglect. Isn't the whole house dying? Isn't the whole house dying of neglect? Isn't the whole house already dying of neglect? There was a gate to the yard that had vines overgrown into it, so I had cut them back to clean it up a bit. When I pulled off some of those vines, I noticed along the top of the gate, he had doll heads attached to this tall arc on an old metal gate. Not small Barbie doll heads, but large baby doll heads that were about the size of my hand. He put them there for decoration, I guess. It was like he did things to make the house look creepy intentionally. That toy train in the front room around the ceiling came off the tracks and was partially hanging down like it would fall down. So I wanted to take it off, dust it off, see if it needed batteries or whatever to get it working. He didn't want me to touch it because he thought it was just so cool how it looked like a train wreck. If it fell, then it may get damaged, and he thought it's amazing how it's suspended, that you don't know if or when it will be wrecked or not. He was acting like it was something deep and meaningful. It's like he finds comfort in chaos. He literally had all the faucets in the house hot and cold water lines switch. This was done before I moved in, and he did it just to mess with people. My grandmother did the same fucking thing. Virginia did the same thing in both her houses. She'd switch the hot and the cold water in the showers. She did it in the showers, okay? Because she was like obsessive about hot water, using hot water. So she'd switch the hot and the cold water. It was crazy. He always played it off like he's this eclectic artist and he saw his house and some type of art exhibit. He at the same time played up the harmless old man act, and at first I took that at face value. Now I see him for what he was, a creep, a predator. Normal people just don't have these strange incidents. Being an artist doesn't give you a free pass either. He was a photographer and would go to local bars and take pictures of women. Sometimes he would coordinate these photo shoots, and young women would come to the house to model, sometimes in skimpy clothing, like, for example, bra and underwear and long socks, literally and posing in front of the half-dead cacti with the taxidermy as if it's edgy or something. They all willingly volunteered for it too, which is the crazy part. They just wanted some cool artsy semi-nude pictures for their social media or some dumb shit like that. I think he used my presence to legitimize himself to women, and he would want me to go with him to the bar where he would take pictures, and at the time I thought I was being supported. He offered to buy me beers, and so I thought, what's the harm? Just because you're being supportive doesn't mean it's a good thing. You have to consider what or who you are supporting. I found stacks of books with pornographic images in magazines in the front room. It's just about all the rooms, actually. I was trying to get him off that weird stuff, good luck, and out of the common areas. He would then start talking my ear off about how he grew up Mennonite and sexually repressed, and it was this horrible thing to live through. He's now free and liberated sexually, but because he hadn't had a partner in so long, and having the porn around is something that made him feel comfort, security, and help with his anxiety. You know what? This would have been my father if my mother had died years ago. This would be my father, 100%, if my mother had died years before she ever did. Creep. Sexual boomer deviance, like most of them are. Voyeur, okay? Probably has peepholes all over the house, probably photographs you without your knowledge, because that's what he's into. He's a creep. It's like my father jacking off at the window, okay, watching the women in the neighborhood through his fucking banana hammock. That's it. Creeps. This is mental gymnastics, and I'm talking about. He repaints himself as the victim for his past, having stacks of porn around, and is some great thing and very helpful and beneficial. Well, that's where we are in society. This is what they're pushing now. This is what the fucking boomers have been pushing for the 60s, okay? And they kind of tried to hide it once they had Gen X kids and try to act better. But no. Once the Gen Xers, once their kids hit 18, 19, or even sooner than that, in a lot of cases like mine, they went right back to their fucking degeneracy. And now who have they corrupted? They've corrupted our kids, the millennial Gen Y, okay? Doing exactly the same type of shit they were doing in the 60s. Being the same fucking degenerates they've always been. It's who they are. And the problem is they get older. Okay, what got them off originally don't get them off anymore. Okay, so it has to get more and more and more deviant, and that's why you're seeing what you're seeing here at these shows. The alphabet people who shall not directly name, okay, until things clear up. This is where we are. This is the fucking boomers. Meanwhile, never remove them or consider that it's inappropriate for me. Only justifies why it's okay for him to keep doing it, denying my reality and reframing what I saw as inappropriate as positive by painting himself as the victim and the inappropriate thing as the only thing that helps him. This one time he got a prescription bottle in the mail and he was jumping up and down making a scene about it. I asked him what he was so excited about, and he was like, I got my Viagra, now I can masturbate. Oh, that's what you want. That's what you want. Some fucking disgusting hoarded out boomer running around with a 4-hour hard on. Woo! Thanks, Mom and Dad. Thanks, Mom and Dad. Thanks for giving my room to a stranger. Thanks for letting me know once again the care and affection and love that should have went to me will go to a stranger every fucking time. Every time. Why don't you send Mom and Dad over in their nut huggers and their fucking spandex pants? I'm sure Captain Viagra would have a great time. Or if he's going to bars, he's not going after boomers, is he? No, he's going after millennials. He's going after young girls who have problems, who have drug problems, who he could get to do things. Why? Because he's an apex predator. Oh, I can't wait, he said all giddy, and I was like, what the fuck? I really don't need to know about that. I was uncomfortable and he knew it, but he just kept pushing my boundaries. Looking back, I feel like he was trying to wear down my boundaries and reframe what is appropriate and a good thing in order to slowly groom me, though I was not aware of this at this time. Yeah, he's grooming you the entire time. Now, in the beginning, when I cooked, I would share just to be nice, but I guess he felt comfortable eating my food without asking after that. I let it slide at first because I didn't want any conflict, and I was hoping he would sign up for IHS. We could start to track that I could do grocery tips for stuff for him as part of my job. I really tried to make the best of everything really nice, and even went so far as to help him clean his room. He complained that he couldn't find his medication because it was on the floor, and his room was such a mess and he didn't know where to start. He had dresser drawers scattered all over with stuff in and out, bottles of urine along the wall. Oh. Pills were everywhere in bottles, loose on floors, pills in drawers. Degenerate. Boomer. They love their pills. They love their drugs. Pissing in bottles. Oh, God. I just took everything out and washed all the clothes, cleaned up the room, then put it all back the best I could. He was so grateful, and I felt like I was making a difference. So it was rewarding to see how much progress was being made. I had been wanting a dog for a while, and he did say that it would be good for security. So I ended up adopting a dog. It was a very good older dog, and he had kennel cough when I got him, but it just didn't go away with his cough, and they did some tests, and an x-ray found he had an enlarged heart. This happened over a period of time, of course, not all at once, and I did sign the adoption paperwork that I would care for any future medical needs. I should have considered pet insurance right away with a pre-existing condition. Now I was not eligible. I needed to be on all these medications. He needed to be on all these medications, and they were pretty expensive. Oh my God. Yeah, are they? And they got pet expense. If anybody's got a pet on medication, the pet medication has gone through the freaking roof. The Staley's medication went from $30 a month. Now it's $58 a month. For a drug called methimazole. But it keeps him healthy. So I felt like it was my responsibility to take care of him, and it's hard to explain, but vets can really guilt you into making you feel like you have to do absolutely everything for your pet. Oh, I've called my vet a scumbag right to his. I'm like, you are a scumbag. Because all they do is they go in there and they try to upsell you. He went in there for his blood test that he has to take every 3 months. Okay, and then they're like, oh, well, he hasn't had this, he hasn't had that. And they tried to come at me with a bill. There was a bill, normally the blood test and the medication, that comes to about $104. He tried to drop like a $700 bill. I'm like, are you out of your mind? I didn't authorize any of this. Like, what are the? He couldn't explain what the tests were, and he's like, I'm like, bro, don't try to lie to me. Don't. Like, well, if you're all right, we'll take it. I'm like, yeah, I'm fine. It's a 12-year-old cat. Okay, he's healthy as hell with these pills. Okay, there are no other issues. Okay, like, no. But that's what vets do. I have talked about that. It's emotional blackmail. They know it because they know how you feel about your pets, and they try to exploit that. Maybe it was unwise for me to do so, but I got him whatever meds he needed. With this added expense, it really put pressure on me to get more money, so I tried to talk to him again about the in-home care and offered to help with the paperwork. There's an ability to do back hours as well, and I already put in so much work. I felt owed for that. He didn't respond, and I told him I would be willing to continue to do the work if he could get on board with the in-home care. If not, he needs to either do his part in the house chores or reduce the rent accordingly. Also, I told him that he needs to pay me back for the food that he eats, and it just wasn't fair to me that doing that much for him and paying him on top of that. He took this very poorly. He got all mad and stormed out. After that, he started being more overtly creepy and weird. He walked around the house completely naked. When I would cover my eyes and be obviously weirded out, he would get mad at me for, I guess, having a bad attitude or something. I remember one time I was giving my dog his medication. This guy walks up from behind me, turns to me, and stops right there, fully naked, stands in front of me. His junk was not only in my level, but a few feet from my face. Is this my father? Are you in Hasbrook Heights? Maybe shit went bad. Maybe shit went bad after Drunky died. Maybe my ex-wife ain't doing shit for him. I don't know. This is all his moves. This is all Meet Normus's moves. Standing, yelling, naked, love to fucking shove his dick literally in my face. I don't mean to laugh, but I gotta laugh. Nothing important to say, just acting casual like he was going to have small talk with me, like it was normal. I think he was doing it all on purpose. He was getting off on it. Of course he was. Of course. He's a degenerate. The boomer gets off on their degeneracy. It's not something to get off on it. They like it. It made me furious. I asked him to put clothes on and he just wouldn't. He'd say, it's my house, I can do what I want. He acted like he was this hippie nudist and I was the one being uncool about it. I felt very I felt very unimportant and humiliated, like none of my preferences or boundaries mattered. I started to stay in my room more from then on. I had been desperately looking for a place to move to, but it was hard. I asked my parents again if they would let me move back home, and they denied, even though that lady from church was no longer living with them. My parents wanted me to stay at the house and thought I would be able to be there in the long term. They acted like this was a great opportunity that I was fucking up. Having an old man's dick in your face is a great opportunity. It's a great opportunity. They wanted me to stick it out, and I really feel like this guy was happy taking care of his with me taking care of his house for him, and was ultimately trying to creep. I think he finds the type of person who is in need of stability and doesn't have a good support network and tends to groom them. Yeah, exactly. It's what he does at the bar. Looks for girls with problems, with drug problems, with self-esteem problems. He's a predator. This would explain his unhealthy obsession with the past roommates who left and left behind nice stuff. It seemed like as if they had a reason not to come back for it. Like they left in a hurry and they didn't want to go back for anything. Three different people had done this. There had to be a reason. This would explain the constant going out of his way to talk about inappropriate things or do inappropriate things in front of me. It's just exposure aimed to desensitize. Do you not know any of their names? Can you find any of them on social media and find out what happened? Shouldn't be that hard. He's got pictures of them. He knows everything. I'm sure he's mentioned their names. I had this feeling I would become very familiar within the years to come, this feeling of desperately wanting to leave but having nowhere to go, looking and searching and finding things that are just out of reach or flat out scams. I found a room for rent. It was inexpensive. It was in the foothills away from town, so it made sense why it was cheap. I was familiar with the area. I even met someone my age who recently moved to the area. So I drove up there one day after work, parked my car outside the gate. He came outside, opened it, and told me I can move my car inside. I said, no, it's good here. I went inside the house, and it was clean and tidy, and the room was a smaller room already furnished. This guy was going on and on about himself and basically his life story and how he came here from Canada. He was in the National Guard, had kids, they had all moved away, and now it's just him there, so he likes to have just someone else in the house. I looked around and went outside and in the bathrooms, kitchen, and all that, and when I was just standing in the living room, he asked me to take a seat. I did. He was just talking and talking. I was just smiling and nodding, being polite, asking questions here and there, trying to stay on topic of the rental or asking about the house rules or the rent requirements. I wanted to know what the expectations would be ahead of time. He then said he doesn't need the money as much as he needs someone to help out with things like grocery shopping, cooking, cleaning. This is the new thing, man. This is what these predators do. I've seen people online do this on chat programs, try to move desperate girls, okay, who are in bad living situations into their house, I'm doing you a favor, okay, until their dick comes out. Because the dick is always coming out when in situations like this. It just is. I thought if I could do that and save money, I could save until I got into a better rental. So I said it would be great for something like that. But then he was like, there's something else too. Here we go. Here we go. He was sitting down next to me and grabbed my thigh and leaned in towards me, trying to kiss me or something. My flight reflex must have kicked in because I jumped up and bolted for the door and ran out the gate and peeled the fuck away. I was glad I didn't park in the gate, that I was able to get out as quickly as I did, and felt relieved but sick to my stomach. I was mad about what happened, and it made me even more angry about my current situation that your parents put you in. Again, your parents keep feeding you to these degenerates. They are feeding you to these degenerates. More angry at my parents, who are still just trying to figure it out and won't even go with me to check on a potential place so this shit wouldn't happen to begin with. That way they have, yeah, they don't want to see it because that way they have plausible deniability. I didn't know. I couldn't go in. I was bit. You should have said something. You should have said something hard. You didn't. Well, you know, you're always lying. This is what you're going to have to deal with. This is what, having to depend on these people for anything, this is what you're dealing with. And again, not all boomers, obviously. Just most of them. The entitlement of this old, fat ass, nasty ass creep, just because he has a house, thinks he can have a young girl be his bang maid. It was a terrifying experience to be preyed on like that. I was trying to find an affordable place to live and ended up getting harassed by a stranger. I realized then how the reason I'm being targeted is because of my situation being single and without the protection or even involvement of my family. I was wandering alone in the wilderness where there were predators. They saw I was alone, so I became an easy target. And that was my parents' hand in all this. I'm glad you got it. I'm glad you got it. This entire time, besides the one room that was my old room in their house, there were 2 rooms that didn't have people living in them. One had a bunch of dolls and kids' toys for future grandchildren that weren't even conceived yet, and more of my mom's junk literally piled to the point where you can't walk into it. The other one was my dad's music room. He had at least a dozen guitars worth of like $2,000 a piece. They're all really high-end vintage guitars. There's another down payment on a house just in guitars. They're just indulging themselves without a care in the world about what I was going through. This I fully realized the scope of just how fucked up this all was and how my parents were not just innocent bystanders. Many people my age lived at home and they saved and they built credit enough to find a good, safe place to live. It became increasingly difficult to live a normal, healthy life. My social life was suffering because of how draining my home situation was. Many times where I really needed the most help, I become the most private. Not out of pride, but more out of humiliation and thinking it was only temporary and I wanted to wait. And I wanted to wait until things were better and not burden people with my issues. When I try to talk to someone, it was met with this superiority like, well, if you don't like it, just move out. Well, just get a mini fridge and stay in your room, as if it's that simple. It's really minimized everything I was going through and made me feel like it was all my choice, and it wasn't. I wanted to move, but I didn't have the choices like most people who have support have. Without being able to have a cosigner, I didn't qualify for a place on my own, and this is what I was disposed to. In the beginning, I didn't want to be there, but my parents were really pushing me to take a chance on it. There was a lot of future faking. Faking going on, and I trusted when I shouldn't have. In the beginning, when I was doing all this stuff, it was so positive. But every time I tried to create or enforce a boundary, there was some type of retaliation. He was keeping score. If I did something bad, like tell him to clean his dishes or put clothes on, he'd ramp up and carry on to have this nasty attitude. To leave more messes and walk around naked in common areas frequently. He went into this silent treatment and it was horrible. There was a horrible, tense feeling in the house. My parents wanted me to house sit for 1 week because they planned a trip to Hawaii. Fuck off! Fuck off! I can't live there, but I can house sit while you go to Hawaii? Suck my ass. You could suck the whole part of my asshole. How about that? How about that? And these are still up. These are the double guns. This is what they get the double guns. Oh, fuck. I know. Listen, I know it's been 3 months since I posted. I've been doing a lot of research. I'm gonna get into that. Okay, and I'm trying to think. Like, do I go on these boomers too fucking hard? No, no. I've been telling you they are the cause of all of this strife that is going on. All of it in this world. They caused it. They set it up. They raised these kids fucked up, and then they destroyed their kids' kids. And now here they are trying to relive the 60s, okay, being fucking degenerates, okay, after being handed the world on a goddamn silver platter. Now we're paying $16 for eggs. Why can't you find a place to live? Fuck off. They cause strife. They cause inflation. They cause like rents to go up $300. But they're the benefactor. They're the owners. And then they'll look down their nose at you. What's your problem? You. They had just barely told me a few days ahead of time. I had been begging them to let me move in, but they wouldn't allow it. I told them I didn't feel comfortable leaving all my stuff that long, and I was concerned he might do something. I really didn't know what to expect, but it was clear something was about to come to a head. It was just a matter of time. I did want to get away, just be alone and distress. So I agreed. My parents live pretty far away in the country under the foothills. It's about 30 minutes from town. The place I rented was further into town and out of the way. I meant to go check back home, but just ended up going straight back to my parents' house after work and not checking the house. You know what you should have done? And I don't advocate for this. Like, you should have just went to their house and squatted. Should have gotten all your stuff out of his house, moved it to their house, went to DMV, had your license changed, had mail sent to the house while they were gone, and what are they going to do? Then they're going to have to go through you want me out? Evict me. Make them go through a fucking process at that point. You pricks. You pricks. That's what you should have done. Oh, you're inviting me in your house? Okay, cool. Okay, yeah, cool. No, you told me I could stay. Oh, it never ceases to amaze me. The fucking the audacity of these people, their entitlement. They're fucking insufferable. I just really didn't feel like going over there unless I had to. When I returned, I found all my indoor plants were gone. I went into my room and the whole room had been tossed. Things dumped out of the drawers, thrown off shelves like someone had gone on a rampage in there. I know if you don't want someone to get your goat, don't tell them where you tie it up. But I told him, don't ever go through my stuff in my room or move my stuff around without asking me first. Because my mom would routinely do this to my room, tossing it, and it was a trigger for me. He must have just taken note just to use it against me. I went outside the back door and all my indoor plants were outside in a pile. They were severely damaged by sun exposure. This was so upsetting that he would actually damage my things like that. I definitely should have filed a police report right then. Late that night, I heard the front door open. He would go to the bars at night and stay many nights until closing. When I heard the door, I went out in the hallway. My room was at the end and the front door was at the front. I was like, why did you do that to my stuff? He was just like, it's time for you to get your shit out. That's why. And I'm just like, it's not okay to damage my stuff like that, though. You're a horrible person and a fucking piece of shit. He started yelling, get out, just get out of my house. And I'm like, and I'm yelling back like, you can't do this to someone. I never did shit to you. He went outside and slammed it shut. He went outside. He went out the side door and slammed it shut. He was very drunk and we were both angry, so I just locked myself in my room and called a friend about what happened. Then a while later, I hear a knock on my door. It's the police. So I told my friend to get off the so I told my friend and got off the phone. I opened the door and the police wanted to talk to me. They asked me what happened. I showed them my room and how it was and how it was like when I got home, and told him how we basically got into a yelling match in the hallway. He asked me if things became physical. I said no. I just called him a horrible person for what he did. I told them about my parents. I told them about my plants that he threw out, and they weren't interested in any of the damages. Of course not. They were saying they have no way to know he did that, and they were more concerned with what they were called for. He told me that he had already been inconsistent and was unable to keep his story straight or make much sense. They told me they believed me and were taking me anywhere out. They told me they believed me and were taking me anywhere, but because of the type of allegation, what was considered elder abuse, and a case would have to be started, and I had to leave that night and move out immediately. Oh, that's that, and that's going to be their coup de grace. Because that is a thing, elder abuse. If you act somebody over 70, they can, that's the boomers' new false rape accusation, is elder abuse now. It's now elder abuse. And now they'll just say, I was abused. And now they're going to come take you away. You think your parents won't do it too? Oh, they will. Oh, they will. They said if it takes some time to move my stuff out, that's fine, but I can no longer live there at all. They gave me a piece of paperwork. It had a court date. They told me I had to appear in court on that date. In total shock, I packed some things and left. And this is probably what happened to everybody else. He has them thrown out and he keeps their stuff. Now you know what happened to all the other roommates. I went to my parents. They sort of couldn't just blow me off anymore because I was made to leave by the police. I literally had to be there since I had no place else. I really wanted to move back home anyways. I miss living in the country and having a garden. I wanted an opportunity to get more stable on my feet and save. My dad started his own landscaping business back in the day and sold it and switched careers, but he was retiring soon, so I was hoping he could mentor me or help me with some of my first steps to start my own small landscaping business so I could become more self-sufficient. I was hoping they would see me as an asset and help me take care of the property, and also I was hoping they would see how I could use support at this time. I thought if I was to live at home, I could have the stability to work towards my goals. I have this part of me that honestly is still there, that longs to come home and be embraced by a healthy and loving family that wants the best for me. It's a fantasy of a safe place where I can come home and be free to do the things I love and enjoy. I have to compartmentalize this because I now know that in reality, even if they hadn't kicked me out, if I had stayed in this dysfunction, I would be worse off, not better. Because the truth is, it's not a safe place. It's not a healthy, loving family, and never was. And this toxic hope that I carried, believing in this fantasy, it kept me from coming back when they were never truly going to be there for me. I'm going to end part 2 and work on part 3 and submit hopefully soon. Thank you and take care. And that's the real tough thing to deal with. Is that you have to accept that if you had been there, nothing would have been much different, because they would just been the ones abusing you. Because they were never going to give you the love or the attention or the support you needed. That support is reserved for strangers. That support is reserved for anyone else except you. Okay? Because they get off on it. They get off on the degeneracy. Just like the guy gets off on the degeneracy. That's the boomer. They get off on their degeneracy. They will give the love and attention and support for you that should have been given to their children to perfect strangers. And they'll do it right in your face. Every time. So, I hope that helps. Thank you for your patience in all this. I am back. Thank you to everybody watching. I thought my voice would get better. It hasn't. Thank you for everybody watching. Please leave any opinions or advice in the comment section below. And again, if you want your story read on the channel, you have a topic you'd like me to cover, something you'd like to expose, you'd like to set up a Skype, a phone call, have a private video made, you'd like to sponsor a video like this for someone who needs help and can't afford it, or just make a contribution to the channel in general to keep it supported, growing, and successful, because this channel survives 100% on contributions from all of you. Without you guys, all of this goes away. So if you like what you see here and you want to see more videos like this, you know what to do with either the Cash App, Zelle, or PayPal links in the description box. Please like and share this video wherever you can. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't, and be sure to click the subscription bell to be notified of all my video uploads. I'm Ollie Matthews. This has been Refuge from Narcissism. Take care, everyone.